We've got games of the week, and there's still time for you to submit your picks as well. We've got rankings are updated this week. The state champs broadcast last night, and I got to see a Michigan high school hockey alumni score an NHL goal earlier this week. We got that and much, much more on this week's pod. So hit that subscribe button on YouTube and let's talk some hockey, shall we? So I was in Nashville earlier this week, fantastic city, for work, and we actually got a chance to get away and catch a Preds game on Monday against the defending Stanley Cup champs. And I didn't really connect the dots ahead of time until I saw warmups and saw fellow Michigan high school hockey alum and pride of Romeo High School, Nick Blankenburg, was also in the building. 16-year NHL vet and former Orchard Lake St. Mary's Eaglet. Jeff Petrie was also on the bench or on the opposing bench as well. So it was kind of a pretty cool coincidence there Monday night. And oddly enough, Blankenburg, he's become a bit of a regular in the Preds lineup. He split time between the A and the show for the last 3 seasons or so since leaving U of M. But he's appeared in 12 of Nashville's 22 games so far this season. Happened to score a power play goal that night too, which was pretty cool. His second of the season, and I believe his 7th point on the year as well, which leads all Preds defensemen in points, which is pretty cool. I think Captain Roman Yossi has missed a lot of time there on the back end, a couple others as well. So Blankenburg obviously has gotten some increased opportunities and in a cool moment there. So kind of funny, stars aligned, like I said, with work and everything. We got to get out to the game and just happened to catch a couple of our own in action at the game's highest level. And I think actually the Preds are in town tonight to play the Wings too. So pretty cool. I'm actually back in Nashville here in a few weeks as well, so maybe I'll get a second chance to go check him out too. I kind of went through the rosters too because that makes between Blankenburg and Petrie, I think that puts 5 Michigan high school hockey alumni in the NHL right now. I saw Alec Regula was in the lineup for Edmonton. I didn't know that. That was new to me. Petrie, obviously, with the Panthers. Luke Glendening in New Jersey, and then Connor Hellebuck with Winnipeg. Some of those obviously are a little more obvious, but like I said, Blankenburg kind of bounced between the A and the NHL recently, and then Regula too. Petrie, Glendening, Hellebuck, those guys are pretty mainstays in the league. Like I said, Petrie haven't played 16 years in the show type thing. So one to keep an eye on too. Joey Larson, by the way, has 8 goals and 12 points in 17 games so far in the American League for the Islanders AHL affiliate. I believe last I looked, he was the highest scoring rookie in the A right now. So maybe a couple injuries, or maybe he stays hot in the A. Maybe he gets a call up to the show here before season's end. So keep an eye on that one too. Joey Larson, former Mr. Hockey recipient out of Heartland there. So I wanted to talk about the state champs broadcast because last night I tuned into the Northville-Novi game. And I know they've been doing it for a few years now, but I feel like it just keeps getting better and better. A few weeks ago, I walked into a bar in downtown Brighton and they had the CC Brighton playoff football game on TV there in the bar. And now obviously it's hockey season and now I'm hearing, select state champs games are going to make their way onto Channel 4 here in Metro Detroit in Metro Detroit. And so that's pretty freaking cool, man, right? Like getting our game in the spotlight and on TV is really cool. So, last night being it might have even been the first broadcast of the hockey season for state champs. I'm not sure, but they were at Novi Ice Arena for the big rivalry matchup between Novi and Northville, the battle for baseline. That was a new tagline there I hadn't heard before, but lines out the door to get in, they said on the broadcast. And it's not a very big rink. That place was packed to the gills. USA Arena will be packed to capacity tonight for the CC Rice game as well. 140 Ice Den. Tickets are sold out. Standing room only at the door for tonight's game between Heartland and Howell. Alpena hosts CC on Friday, and the city might just shut down. You remember the scene from Remember the Titans, and they're panning like downtown stores and shops, and there's a sign in the storefront window that says closed for the Permian game. Like that's going to be the city of Alpena on Friday night. You might get a couple of these games a year in high school hockey where the building is just packed, lines out the door. The fire marshals are concerned about safety concerns and overcapacity and things like that. But we've got like half a dozen this week alone, it seems like, which really speaks to just the environment in high school hockey, the raucous crowds, the crazy scenes, the band in the stands last night for Northville. That's what high school sports are all about, man. And just really, really cool environments. And then you put the broadcast on top of all that. State champs, like I said, just gets better and better. And I got the smart TV in the house, right? So I'm pulling up the YouTube app on TV and pulling up the broadcast right there in my living room. And it just felt like I was watching a real game, a real broadcast, college level, ESPN and all that. It was really an experience. So I just got to say, well done by state champs. And, I can't say I'm all that surprised when you know who the players are on that side of things, that state champs would produce a high quality product. And I know they've got a couple more planned throughout the year. They're calling the Brighton St. Mary's game tonight. And I'll definitely be tuning into that one as well. Have that one on the big screen too. Sean and Mike do a fantastic job on the call. The production value is incredible. They had a pregame analysis segment where Sean and Mike are talking outside the locker room, and then cuts to shots of in the rink, multiple camera angles, one at ice level, one at center ice following the action, coaches interviews at intermission. Just cool stuff, man. Very high quality, high end stuff. We talk about what goes on in Minnesota and envy what they've got there. Well, things like this add value to what we do too, and gets us that much closer to the product that's on the ice in places like Minnesota. So I think things like this just really elevate our game and take it to another level. So there's just one thing though. I need Patty Cesarini between the glass. Put her in the penalty box with a cross ice camera shot of her at ice level, giving you the inside scoop, just like NHL on TNT. I really need that. Just be the chef's kiss there on top of it all. But real great broadcast all around. Just completely elevates our product. Like I said, puts our kids in the spotlight, showcases our game in a great way. It's next level stuff. And I know some of us might not necessarily care until they're broadcasting my kid's game or my team's game or my school and whatnot, but check them out, man. Take a look. It's a real great watch. And if you're in our game, you just got to get excited about things like this. Really, really impressive. So, okay, that leads into pretty well for my games of the week segment. I put out on Instagram your big ticket games of the week, which is appropriate for this week because, like I said, some of these games they're turning people away at the door because they don't have enough room to house everybody. And I'll have some graphics and things for this segment, as well as the rankings updates here soon. I just didn't have a chance to do all of that this week. Like I said, being out of state earlier this week. And so unfortunately, you're stuck looking at my ugly mug this time around. But so Novi Northville, this was one of 13 games I highlighted in this week's picks, linked in the description below. And there's still time for you to get your picks in on some of these games as well. But I'll catch us up on some of the games that have already happened Monday, Tuesday. This will be a weekly segment. I'll pick a couple big games, top 25 games, evenly matched games that I think could go either way. And I'll go to head with you, the public, in a PD versus the public challenge on pdspicks.com. Last season, I edged out the public by just 3 games with a 44-20-3 record overall. We'll wipe those slates clean and start fresh this week albeit, like I said, 3 of those games have already finished at the time of recording. So we can update those records a bit, plus talk about the upcoming 10 games on the schedule as well. Northville-Novi last night, it's a rivalry game that always produces close games. But I thought last night's had a chance to get a little bit out of hand, and it did as the game wore on. Ethan Egglesky and Tommy Marinoff were able to just kind of wear down that young Novi team. A lot of potential with the Wildcats, though. Good reason to be excited. Started a freshman goalie last night in a hostile environment. I thought Derek Spence did a nice job for them, 37 saves in that one. It was a 1-1 game and a 2-2 game early on, and then the floodgates kind of gave way a little bit. So Spence's numbers aren't great overall and might be a little rough all season long, as he and the Wildcats experience some growing pains. But I like this kid's intangibles. He's athletic, he moves well, he's springy in net. As he develops and the team develops over the next few years, really could grow into a contender there for Novi. Hastoy, Chippa, Erskine, O'Brien, Hoppy. Those are your leading scorers for Novi right now, all underclassmen. Erskine and Hoppy are sophomores, for God's sake. So on top of that, I thought senior Owen Schlicker had a real nice game for the Wildcats as well. He was buzzing around and making plays, making things happen. Don't think he got on the score sheet there, but like I've said so many times on this podcast before, it's never about the goals and assists with me. You're out there making plays, winning 50-50 battles, being a pest on the forecheck, things like that. So Schlicker was one there for me that I thought had a real nice game. For Northville, they talked a lot about Alex McCollum and Isaac Nelson and what they meant to this Mustang squad last season on the broadcast. And those were two very high-end defensemen in the state, now graduated. Last season's Northville squad was a bit top-heavy. McCollum and Nelson were relied upon on D to do a lot and carry a large workload. This year's team has some top end guys. Egglesky, as I mentioned, Marinoff, mentioned them a minute ago, but it seems like the median has gone up on this group. This is a team with 3 or 4 lines capable of rolling out the door, right? The top might not be as top heavy, albeit the forward trio of Egglesky, Marinoff, and Lucas Gerke looked good last night. But this is a very even, balanced team throughout. Mustangs looked real sharp in victory last night. So that was one game already in the books. I got that one right. The public was all over that as well. 80% of the picks coming in on Northville. 2 other games already in the bag as well at time of recording here. I took a chance on a younger Divine Child team to steal one from Liggett on Monday night. Public was in a slight agreement there at 52% of the picks. That obviously did not happen. So we both take an L in that one. Close game, though. Liggett with the 4-2 win added an empty netter in that one there. That's really what I'm trying to accomplish with these games and identifying some of these matchups on a week-to-week basis. Make sure I'm keying in on good competitive games. So I'll take a bit of a moral victory there because it was a 1-goal game in the final minute. The other one last night, I'm a bit blinded by my love for Escanaba at the moment. I'll admit it. I took them to get a bit of an inspired win over Jeffers playing at Michigan Tech. The public was with me as well. 53% of the picks coming in on the Eskimos, but it was Jeffers proving its ranking now at 20th in the state with a 5-2 win over the Eskimos. Eskimos are pretty banged up at present day. The locker room sounds a little bit more like an emergency room at the moment with the amount of injuries there. They get healthy over the next couple weeks, though, could look like a completely different team by the time we get to like late January there. A couple other games coming up. And remember, like I said, there's still time for you to get your picks in for these next ones at the link below. So don't miss out on that. First, let's take a look at Genesee and Dexter, two very evenly matched teams on paper, I think. Both have talented top ends that should present a real fun top versus top matchup in this one. Jacob Joffe has emerged as a viable running mate for Jeremy Schroeder there at Dexter. Joffe has 5 goals and 5 assists through the team's first 4 games of the season, but the Dreads are just 2-2 overall. On the other side, Genesee goes on the road with a top line of Brennan Bernard, Connor Combs, and my guy, top 100 name to know, Logan Beckwith. It's a tough environment to go into. Just a funny rink there at Vets. I could see that kind of throwing guys out of their normal pregame rituals and things like that. Crowded locker rooms. It's a uncomfortable environment to come into as an opposing team, especially on a Wednesday night like this. But I'm going to take the Gens to steal one tonight before the holiday. Shifting into another matchup here, I mentioned this one earlier. St. Mary's goes to Brighton tonight as well. State champs will be in the building for a rivalry that's not a rivalry, but gets treated like a rivalry. These two have played on Thanksgiving Eve every year for the past 13 plus years. So that's kind of what I mean. It's a rivalry, but it's not really a rivalry. Anyways, it'd be a big win for the 12th ranked Bulldogs on home ice, but the Eaglets look to just be in midseason form already. Rolling 3-0 to start the season. Emmett Pilch, Jacob Hughes, Thad Rainish, they look good, man. I think this one could get a little out of hand. I said 6-1 on the blog. Could be like a 5-1, 5-2 type thing too, but a game that I think the Eaglets could dominate start to finish. One couple more here for you. Pioneer and Saline, a rivalry I know all too well, right? Look, I'm not Urban Meyer or Desmond Howard. Just because I coached at Saline doesn't mean I won't pick against them. But it has been an internal struggle for me to say nice things about Pioneer. Okay. I've been forcing it like a square peg into a round hole. The Pioneers have some weapons. There's no denying it. It's a strong group, a ton of returners, a AAA guys getting added to the mix as well. I'm forcing myself to like this team, but they're getting rocked by a Divine Child team last week. So Saline's got a stud goalie in net, one that is 2-0 against the Pioneers with a 9.66 save percentage in those 2 games. If Jack Dirkson's number gets called in this one, it presents a huge mountain to climb for Pioneer, but it's put up or shut up time, I think. Pio, get the win or I'm getting out. That's what it's coming down to at this point. Ike and De La Salle, another rivalry matchup here on Thanksgiving Eve. My DMs are littered with look out for Eisenhower. Hey, watch out for Eisenhower messages all over the place in my DMs. Guys, I know, I get it. Stop telling me. I was already high on them coming into the season, even before this. And they're handling their business, right? But we're going to learn a lot about this Eagles team in the next 3 to 4 games, I think. And this one against De La Salle will tell us a lot. I think the I think the Pilots are outgunned in this one. And they maybe even sense some of the hype coming in around Ike ahead of the game and knowing the hype that's coming in around the team on the other bench, right? I think Coach Chad LaRose will have a sound game plan for this one and give the Eagles a close, tough game. Pilots play inspired in this one too. But if Ike is who everyone says they are, they win this game, no excuses. There's no reason for it, right? If they're as good as we think they are, they get the victory here. I took the Eagles 3-2 in this one. Tough game though. Rice and CC, I put it on here because you can't not include it, right? Arguably the biggest rivalry in the state. But I don't think this one is a game. I know everyone thinks CC is ripe for the picking now because CC lost a game. They're human, and they lost one game by 1 goal to a top 5 team in the state. CC is still CC, guys. I think Drake England gives the Warriors an outside shot, but he would have to stand on his head with an amazing performance. I think this one actually gets a little bit ugly. I'm taking the Shamrocks with a big one, 6-0 win here on Thanksgiving Eve. This next one is your main event of the evening, really of the week, maybe even of the season, with Heartland and Howell going toe to toe in the 140 Ice Den, like I mentioned earlier. Top five matchup, cross county rivalry. The building had pre sale tickets that were sold out already. People will be lining up 3 hours before game time in hopes, just to hope of getting in this one. What an environment this will be. Absolutely incredible. Heartland has a ton of momentum. And yes, they did just beat CC, whereas Heartland lost to CC. So if you want to play the shared opponents game, I'm not going to get into that. Howell's on home ice, which I think plays to their advantage quite a bit, especially considering the rowdy environment. Tons of skill on the ice. And with Coach Keith Robertson having last change, I think that's a huge leg up when both teams are as talented as they are. I wrote in the preview, my only fear is tensions run high in this one because of the rivalry and the relationships on both sides. It's going to get chippy, and I don't want the refs to get whistle happy and make this a big special teams fest. Hopefully, we let the boys play a little bit and see this game for what it is. But I'm going to go Howell in a low scoring one, 2-1 final there. But again, like I said, if this turns into a power play fest, Katie bar the door, all hell will break loose, and it'll be an impossible one to predict at that point. Okay, moving on to Friday here as we get to the other side of Thanksgiving. Grosse Ile at Bay City. The Red Devils are uncharacteristically out to a 2-2 start, which is their worst start since the 21-22 season when they finished 12-11-1. And it's kind of head scratching, right? Because you're like, a 2-2 start, like it's not that bad. But we've grown so accustomed to Grosse Ile winning 20 games that the 2-2 start, rattles our cages a bit. This is a big spot for them too. They drop a third game here before we get to December, and we really get into unfamiliar territory there with Grosse Ile. Bay City's on home ice. Grosse Ile got to drive all the way up there, be after the holiday too. Louis Adair, Cade DeRussell, Carter Richard. That's a real problem in this matchup. I'm taking the Wolves here 5-2 and leaves Grosse Ile reeling a little bit here, playing catch up. Okay, Marquette and Houghton playing back-to-back home and home games this weekend in a two-game series for Upper Peninsula supremacy. And looking particularly at the first game in this series, the Gremlins haven't looked as dominant as I might have expected them to here. A 2-2 tie to Hancock to open the season, and then got drubbed a little bit over the weekend, 6-0 by Howell. And Howell is elite. Don't get me wrong. It's a great team. But for them to do that on the heels of a long bus ride into your building, no less, it's a tough one to swallow there. I like the Sentinels in this matchup to get a big performance out of Parker Nievenhoven in net. I think they steal game one, giving themselves a chance to sweep the weekend series. Ultimately, I think the two teams split and go one game apiece, but I'm going to take Marquette here to win game one. Two Saturday matchups for you here to keep in mind. TC Central is winless so far and could remain that way heading into Saturday's game with Grand Rapids Christian. The Eagles, on the other hand, have won their last three and scored 5 or more goals in each of those games. Theo Partridge and company look to be the better team on paper, but this will be their third game in 4 days, with Thanksgiving being your quote unquote off day. And then you also have a travel time in there to Traverse City mixed in there somewhere in between. Meanwhile, Central is at home, and the deck feels just a little bit stacked against Christian, with both of their Friday, Saturday games being 16 or 18 hours apart. It's a quick turnaround. I'm taking Central here to get in the win column for the first time. It's just a lot of adversity there, I think, for Grand Rapids Christian to be facing here on a holiday weekend. So taking the Trojans to steal one there at Center Ice Arena. Last one for you on our games of the week segment. Alpena, everyone's so focused on this CC matchup on Friday. People have been talking about this game since October, preseason. I was getting messages of hyping this game up. And they should be for good reason. Like I said, the city could very well shut down ahead of this game with 3,000 to 4,000 people expected to be in attendance. But even with an inspired effort, I don't see the Wildcats knocking off CC. I just don't. So if that's an L and you got to pick yourself up and play Caledonia the following night, totally deflated, won't draw the same crowd or the same energy as the night before. So you got to bring that energy. This is your must-win game of the weekend for Alpena, not CC. Last thing you want to do is let one loss snowball into two here. So I think the Scots could jump out to an early lead in this one, 2-0, 3-0 in the first period. And then the Wildcats are left to play catch up the rest of the way against a very good and gritty Caledonia team. Look, I hope I'm wrong, but I just think it's a tough, tough spot. Bit of a trap game almost on the heels of the CC1. So I'm taking Caledonia here to get the win, which would be a tough, tough pill to swallow there if I'm Alpena to go 0-2 on the weekend. Okay, we'll move into the rankings. Quick update for you. I'm going to update these weekly. I may not always have graphics or articles or blogs to coincide with it, but I'll do my best to update these rankings weekly. Biggest mover from the preseason rankings to now, Heartland is up 3 spots. Obviously, the big win over Catholic Central. They are up to second in my rankings. Let me see if I can pull this up. The link is in the description below if you want to check out my top 25. I got Heartland at 3, excuse me, behind Howell. And, you may scratch your heads over that. Well, why aren't they first? They beat CC. Look, I know they beat CC, but CC is still the top team in the state. And I'm not knocking them off that pedestal because they lost one singular game. For the same reason I wouldn't drop some of these other teams down for losing a tough 1-goal game. So trying to treat CC like we treat everybody else here when it comes to the rankings and the standings. So I got Catholic Central 1, Howell 2, Heartland 3. Obviously, tonight's matchup between number 2 Howell and number 3 Heartland will decide and determine a lot there moving forward as well. A couple other small moves for you. Gabriel Richard is up 1 spot. I got them at 8 right now, 4-0 to start the season. I think that Marysville win to open the season is going to be a big feather in the cap as the season wears on. Keep an eye out on that Marysville team. Obviously played Gabriel Richard tough, took Flint Powers to overtime. The results aren't going Marysville's way, but they're playing top teams tough and ugly and hanging in these games that you don't necessarily need to win so long as you have a strong showing against some of these top tier teams. So the fact that they gave RGR a fight there in game 1 says a lot. Granville is up 1 spot as well. They cracked the top 10. Aside from the West Ottawa tie, the Bulldogs have just been dummying everybody. Maybe that tie serves as a good wake-up call heading into next weekend. I think they're actually off this week, which is a smart move there by the coaching staff to just be off this weekend. I would not want to play a game going into Thanksgiving, and then I wouldn't love the idea of playing a game on the heels of Thanksgiving either. I mentioned Grand Rapids Christian playing Wednesday, Thanksgiving Thursday, travel day, and a game Friday, and then another game Saturday. That's a tough, tough slate. So kudos to Granville maybe for just taking the bye week this week and just saying, boys, enjoy the holiday, enjoy Thanksgiving, and we'll see you on Monday kind of thing. So I like that move. So anyways, they get to hopefully, like I said, that 2-2 tie kind of rattles their cage a little bit, wakes them up, makes them feel human a little bit before they head into this big next weekend with 2 top-ranked teams games against Trenton and Houghton on consecutive days. Alpena, I've talked about them a little bit earlier. They're up 2 spots, 5-0, and looking good out of the gate. They don't have to sweep this weekend to keep moving up either. Like I said, a strong showing in 2 tough games. Cats could continue to climb week over week, but it's a tough spot for them this week coming up for sure. Eisenhower, you heard me talk about them as well. They are up 2 spots, outscoring opponents 33-6 in their first 4 games of the season. They're the better team in those matchups, and they're showing it, which is what you want to see. But like I said, these next 4 games will tell us a lot there. And if they show, and if they are who they tell me they are, then the train should keep rolling. So we'll see there. Jeffers is up 1 spot, looked good, even in the lone loss there to a high-end Houghton team. A couple big games coming up as well. Northville and Cranbrook also moved up a spot. And like I said, you can see the complete top 25 here on pdspicks.com, and the link is in the description below. Games of the week, rankings movement, alumni talk. We got to talk about Nick Blankenburg there for a minute as well. You like what you hear, like the video, and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I'd really appreciate that. Slowly creeping up on that goal of 1,000 subscribers. So let's make that happen, people. Happy Thanksgiving to all. My favorite holiday of the year. Until next time, skate hard, have fun. I'll see you at the rink soon.